All right, everybody knows the rules. Good vibes only, 30 minutes or less. Let's get another wellness check. Do you know that face? Do you know that voice? Do you know about writer, director, producer, pickleballer, podcast host, entrepreneur, filmmaker, jack of all trades, master of Bashan? Hey, that's Jason Aron right there.
It is. If only I got paid for all those titles. I mean, I'd
Well,
be I'd be doing
yeah.
all right.
Jay, let's start off right here. And first of all, thank you for joining me. You and I have worked together in so many different lanes and forms in recent years. But, I'm building this YouTube channel off the success of Morning Kombat. And to MK viewers, whether it's justified or not, you are the biggest heel, the biggest villain outside of Luke himself in MK history. Does that sit well with you in 2024?
I understand it. I understand how we got there. I do wonder whose fault it was, though. Like who put me in that box. I mean, many names can be thrown around. Was it Luke Thomas himself? I don't know. Or some others back at the Malkaverse.
There it is. But when we did launch this show back in 2019, you played a big role. I fought for you to get screen time, FaceTime.
And I
we
did.
We had a good run there. You were a star of the documentaries, if you will, looking back. How do you sum up your time and your what's the right word to describe your career? Eclectic, in your very eclectic career, Jay.
That's a good word for it.
What the hell did MK mean to you?
I loved MK. It was a weird time. I mean, it was COVID. I spent about 15 hours a day in the basement at the time when I was getting that screen time on MK. I would have loved for it to continue. There were no checks, though, coming my way. There were no checks. I'm a big...
Or balances. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no checks in a lot of ways. Not like the green one that's over.
There it is. There,
that one. Yeah. None of those either.
I mean, when you look back, what was it like being the voice of reason for BC and LT?
I just love that I was able to program macros and press little buttons, and then my face would come flying on the screen and it would just piss Luke off. I mean, there really was no better feeling, to be very honest. I'd love to, if you could talk to somebody over there at it's under ATS Fight, right? Is that?
Yeah, it's in all the smoke production.
So if we can, if we could talk to some people that we might both know, I mean, a recurring role, I'm not against it. Not going to say no to it,
Well, I always said you were a very fun playable character in the MK universe. But, if we're going to go deep in our first topic here in down the MK road, I do wonder what happened to the supposed lost footage from MK documentary number 5 in Miami, right? We were there for Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather, and people may not realize you worked for Malka for many years. So even after your time with MK, you were still a part of a lot of our road live stuff that was going on. There was an angle, Jay, a story arc of your redemption, of you coming back as a musician, Pennington James.
We diddled the keys in the lobby. I remember. I mean, that was. Where is that footage? I don't believe it's gone. I don't believe it's gone.
Loses footage like that. I think it might be a corporate conspiracy, to be fair.
It probably, Malka has very high footage security protocol, and I would say that footage still exists somewhere. We just got to get it back. We just got to get it back. It's not dead. It's not. They got backups on backups on backups.
You're damn right they do. But I will say, look, you don't get the credit you deserve for making us in the beginning. And I do bring this up sometimes in meetings. We were technologically taking chances in the beginning. Do you remember the first episode of MK had that camera on the moving train tracks across?
I do.
You got us COVID friendly before really any other podcast was, and kept us alive, which was a key part of our growth.
We missed one episode.
And during that time, you were co-hosting a podcast with Sinbad, of all people, Jay.
Sure was. And then he went and had a stroke, and that was, I haven't heard from him in a while. But I will tell you, and this is inside the MK universe, like really insider. I was the one that said that we should not have missed a single episode for MK. I was ready right when COVID shut us down, but the powers that be said, we don't trust you, and we're not doing that. But yeah, I was ready to take that sucker nuclear, and we that was a good time. That was a good time. In fact, really, that's when the ATS world and the MK world first really collided during COVID, because prior to that, I had never worked on ATS, and they went full remote as well. So we actually implemented the same technology for your show and ATS back in, I guess that was March 2020, April.
Sure. Yeah. Oh yeah, you were one of the stars of the pandemic, along with Tiger King and Michael Jordan's Last Dance. Jay, to close on MK, are you surprised it's still around in 2024? I mean, you could argue it's limping post Showtime exit. You could always argue with Luke it's a volatile day-to-day, week-to-week experience. Are you surprised? We may not be the award-winning Morning Kombat anymore, but we are still alive. What does that mean to you?
I am not blowing smoke up your ass. I'm actually surprised that it's not bigger. I'm surprised that, like, post Malka Showtime, that there wasn't just like this big opportunity, to get picked up by, like a Pat McAfee deal.
There was a window there where we were on that level. Okay, maybe not to pay money or clicks, but we were red hot at one point. Hopefully again. Jay, you and I have resurfaced over the years a lot of times in boxing, live streaming.
Oh yeah.
I'll never forget when you directed and produced Triller's Donald Trump alternate commentary with Don Jr., Sr., and Todd Grisham. But I wear this shirt right now, Jay, for a reason.
I didn't even get one of those. I didn't even get one. Where did you get that?
Because when they let your boy BC hang out to dry hosting the baddest tour, the Masvidal versus Diaz multi-city, multi-press conference tour, nobody really knows that you were the voice of reason in my ear. You were the production host, the technical director, so many titles. When you look back earlier this year, Jay, at our time, going around to different cities with two fighters who really didn't want to be there, what are your takeaways?
Well, first of all, there were a lot. I think we did 10, 9, somewhere in there, 11 street, like some
15 press conferences, something like that.
Some ridiculous number. It was the moment in Miami where they put you out in an amphitheater by the river in the middle of nowhere, and they said, "Okay, we're ready to start." And they weren't ready to start. They hung you for a solid half hour. There was nobody even there. And we just put you on air. That was by far the defining moment that could sum up that entire tour. But I got to tell you, I had a lot of fun doing that. And I think boxing misses that.
Wow.
There needs to be more of that. I mean, we all know at the end of celebrity fights, it's just two bums on the street who don't know how to box. Most people at home like watch that and go, "Oh, I could do that," and they're probably right. I mean, they're probably not too. I know these are decorated MMA careers behind these two guys, but I'm looking forward to where is it? I don't. Do we give away the date? Do we tell them when we recorded it? It's late October. We're 2 weeks out from Mike Tyson fighting Jake. I am so excited for that. I can't even tell you. I will actually be in Dallas, unrelated, when that fight's happening, and I am pushing hard to go over to AT&T Stadium, where we've also had some great moments.
Sure.
To see that. I'm excited for that.
All right. Well, I say you were the voice of reason in my ear, although I would argue with you every time. Why are you actually not in my ear with an IFB?
That's a good point.
Because Jay, there were some crazy moments on that tour. I do want to get, if you can trace back your steps to the Anaheim press stop, where we were outside the Honda Center. And it ended in an epic, bloody brawl between Team Masvidal and Team Diaz. I hid behind the stage on that balcony we were on. You produced from the inside, but the brawl continued to the inside. Were you nervous during that sequence?
It was a very lucky. It's going to be hard to paint the picture without like actual pictures, but the way that was set up, it was like a stadium club, and then there was an outdoor patio outside the stadium club, and that's where the press conference was. So what everyone saw was that outdoor patio. For just dumb luck, they put all my production gear like inside behind a couple doors. However, those doors were heavily windowed. And when that fight started, I think everyone was afraid that people were coming through the windows. It was those size, full window doors. And I think that's what the stadium security was afraid of. People think that this stuff is fake. People think that this is WWE. That was as real as it gets. That was just real brawl. And that's what I love about just combat sports in general. You can't recreate the adrenaline. I wasn't fighting. You weren't fighting, but the raw just emotion and adrenaline that you get when something like that goes down. That's the best part of my job. Most people, it makes them cringe, like, oh my God, we're going to lose this fight, the hospital, the lawsuits. I'm like, no, let's go. That's me. I think that's you too. I think we're
it was. I'll never forget that LA stop we had, which was one of 3 different press conferences that Nate Diaz left early after being sick of me talking. But do you remember when that crowd was ready to jump the stage and attack Masvidal? That was a hell of a moment.
As real as it gets. People think, oh, that was a plant. That was not a plant. That was a guy who hated Jorge Masvidal, who was talking words that I don't even think we can repeat on this podcast, or we'll get canceled like Tony Hinchcliffe. And they were, they were jawing the whole time. And the security budgets on these things aren't necessarily high. Like, there's not much from separating these things from turning into a legitimate street fight right there inside the Novo and at LA Live.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised we made it to fight night. I'm surprised the check cleared. I don't know if it worked out for Nate. Can you say publicly? Are you well compensated for that?
I was compensated in full for that event. Yes.
All right, there you go.
I hope that future potential employers of mine aren't necessarily listening to this, but as a director, stylistically, look, if I worked for ESPN, I know what the mandate is, right? It's no, we don't show that stuff on TV. We don't show the streaker on the field at the baseball game. As a director, and I think if you go back and look at my my line of work, probably all the way back to the Danny Garcia, Sean Porter press conference, where Angel Garcia lost his mind a little bit.
He may have said the N-word. He may have said it
like 12 or 35 times. I'm a show it guy. Give the people what they want. I'm not supporting that. These aren't my political views, right? Like asterisk on the bottom of the screen. But give the people what they want, So when these brawl things happen in the crowd, I'm getting the camera there. We're making sure we have a jib up high. Ironically, back to the in Anaheim, that press conference with the brawl. If you watch it back, the coverage wasn't great. I'll be the first to admit it. It's because just a weird logistical thing of the 22 press conferences we did for that tour. That was the only one we didn't have a jib at, and it wasn't a budget thing. There were string lights across the whole porch. And you wouldn't have been able to move a jib. So we said, all right, for this one, we're just going to have, a regular. So we didn't have, it's that angle. And it kills you inside. It's like, damn, I just wanted to show, Papatillo getting clocked by some.
It was a great moment. Maybe that fight isn't a success without that moment, to be fair, as much as it was just like, holy crap, what did we enter into?
And the other moment in LA that you Nate Diaz walking out on you. And
oh yeah.
Speaking of dropping the N-word,
he got a pass for that, and I'm not going to argue against it. Jay, you may be known as a villain or a goofball sidekick on MK, but you've done. I'll give you credit. You've done a lot of shit in your time. Maybe none bigger than. Correct me if I'm wrong on the air. The 2015 documentary Back in Time.
Correct. That is correct.
About your love affair and really pop culture, American cinema's love affair with Back to the Future and the extended spin-offs there and the whole sort of thing. I mean, you sat down with everyone for that. It's streamed on major networks. I don't want that to be the highlight of your career because I want you to do bigger things. But when you look back, was that surreal to sort of be sitting down in Michael J. Fox's apartment in New York City in his house and talking shop about one of the greatest films ever?
Not only that, we were really talking shop about the New York Rangers. I mean, we're both big hockey fans. He's from Canada, so of course he's a hockey fan, and he's a Bruins guy. He's friends with Cam Neely. And when we turned the cameras off, that's the conversation I'll never forget. We were just talking about going to the Garden and watching Ranger games, which was crazy. It is weird. It's been 9 years. It came out 9 years ago, a week ago. was a 9-week anniversary, October 21st. If you're a Back to the Future fan, that date is very special in your heart.
Yes.
Ironically, I'm not going to flip the camera around, but the wall right in front of me is the only wall in my house that has any pictures on it, or one of, and it's the movie posters from that film that I did, and along with a signed. Actually, I'll get the signed thing.
Give the people what they want, Jay, please. Okay.
This is a 1 of 1. This is
Wow.
Yeah. So the movie poster from Back in Time featured a license plate. So I had this license plate made, and this is on the poster, and it's signed by Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. I'm hoping if I ever am broke in the streets and don't have money for the next meal, that this could keep me fed.
Well, don't keep saying that out loud. It may happen, Jay. All right, these careers take twists and turns.
Don't put these things in the universe. No, I hear you. But yeah, it's a weird thing because it feels like maybe I'll do bigger things that might make me more money, but notoriety wise, I mean, we were just everywhere for that project. I mean,
you interviewed everyone for that. It streamed. I saw it on Hulu. Is that where else did it air?
Premiered on Netflix. So it was on Netflix for 3 years. Then it went to Hulu. It went to Peacock. I think it might actually be on Peacock now. But our distributor, handles all those.
Yeah, Jay's always been a big fan of the cock, so it's good to see that it ended up there. But Jay,
yeah.
In all seriousness, I can't hate on that film when it's on. You can't turn away from it. I've heard people say before that in this sort of realm of fantasy, fun, family adventure movies, it might be perfect from start to finish. Is it literally your favorite movie of all time?
They call it the perfect screenplay. Wow, it's my favorite movie of all time. I think I have to say yes because of what it did for my life. It did pretty much change my life completely. There will never be any going back on that. Whatever I do in my career going forward, that was the huge turning point. Worked hard to get there, but that was a turning point, and it's opened every door since then. I'm actually working on a documentary right now. I'm sure that's one of your questions for later. But anytime I write an email to say, hey, whoever, want to interview you for this, somewhere in that email is, I'm the director of the 2015 #1 documentary Back in Time. You don't hide behind that. So
sure.
I think for that alone, it has to kind of be, my favorite movie of all time. It is perfect. You never turn it off. You could probably watch that movie once a week and not be bored, or just sprinkle in the other two.
I cannot believe how much it stands up. I mean, I did see it first run in the theater in '85. I was 7, and I've grown to love 2 and 3 despite their flaws on really high levels. How do you think 2 and 3 compare to the first one?
So ironically, because we're close in age, but given that we're not, those couple of years were important for this because I was only 3 when it came out. So I didn't see it in the theater. And my real introduction to Back to the Future was 2, which came out in '89. So that was kind of the one that I saw first. And I've always just been a technology junkie, as you can see all the garbage sitting behind me. But I've always loved technology. So 2 was like, oh my God, this is the future. And as a 9-year-old, you don't see the holes. And I think what's interesting with 2 is that it did a really, and by the way, and who doesn't love sports gambling? I mean, everything they picked, it's did they nail the future in 2? No, but they got some really cool components, kind of right up, cell phones were in 2, hoverboards we still don't have, but would have been the coolest toy imaginable. And then the whole sports gambling thing. So they nailed all the key things in 2. And I came back around to 1, which you then realize, oh no, this is the perfect film. And I didn't like Westerns growing up. So 3 didn't hit, but I think what Back to the Future did well in all 3 movies, and what I think makes a great media product, and what I tried doing with Back in Time too, is you're never gonna hit everyone. If people are really into a niche and you really try to cater to it, you're going to hit such a small demo. And sure. Back to the Future, it's a sci-fi movie. It's a rom-com. It's an action movie. It's a comedy. I mean, Michael J. Fox is hilarious. The writing is great in that movie. But it's not too much of any of those things. And the other thing it didn't do, which other 80s movies did, which is why they don't hold up, there are special effects in 2, although a lot of it was shot practically. And like, there's one shot I remember in 2 where Biff, or I think is it Biff or Griff? I think it's Griff's hoverboard drops out of a case, and it's like the worst CGI shot ever. But there's only a couple of those in the movie. Otherwise, they did a lot of practical effects, so you don't watch it and go like, "Oh, those special effects are terrible." They just didn't take anything too far, and that's why I think it works perfectly.
Okay, so it's very these days, no, it seems like there's no creativity. You're either making a Marvel type movie or you're recreating something from 30 years ago. Obviously, when it's done right, like Cobra Kai off of the Karate Kid series,
So
you're
good.
almost inventing new lanes and new places to go. But so many times reunions or unnecessary sequels, especially years after the fact, can ruin sometimes the love. Are you happy that they haven't done that, as far as I realize off the top of my head, in terms of Back to the Future, to bastardize the original trilogy?
I'm almost embarrassed to say I haven't seen the Broadway show. I just haven't. But what I've heard is it's good. So I've not heard one negative. I've not heard something. I saw it was terrible. But again, that's just a Broadway adaptation of Back to the Future. So that's not what I would put in the category that you're talking about. Because Back to the Future was written by Robert Zemeckis, who doesn't need the money, and Steven Spielberg, who executive produced it, who definitely doesn't need the money.
Doesn't need the money, yeah.
Those two basically have a stronghold on stopping Universal Studios from remaking Back to the Future. They can control that, and to their word, and this is in my film 10 years ago, they said it will never be done. And ironically, in my film, if you go watch it, they did talk about the Broadway adaptation. So it was already in the works then, and it went to the West End. Now Broadway, fine. So everything so far seems accurate. Cobra Kai is a great thing that you brought up, because my God, that show is good. I love that show. And ultimately, if you take the Karate Kid out of it, it's like a stupid teenage drama that somebody my age should not be watching. But just because of those little ties and that, oh, Mr. Miyagi hid this in the ground, 30 years ago, you can't turn it off. And I think that Back to the Future actually, because it's a time travel movie, and you can get really creative with script writing when you could move around years, and you've already accepted that you could change things based on, like, if I do something 20 years ago, it'll change 20 years later. I think Back to the Future, put into the right hands. And by the way, Bob Gale, the other writer of Back to the Future, is so invested still in Back to the Future lore, because he hasn't done much else outside of Back to the Future. You let Bob Gale oversee some guys like the Cobra Kai guys, and I think it would be a great remake, but they're not going to let it happen.
Well, instead of, I don't want to do any remakes, but if
No,
you
not
can
a remake. Like, I don't want to
the
see
story.
Yeah.
It's such a perfect line you have to walk, like Cobra Kai has over, many seasons. I mean, almost a gratuitous amount of seasons, but like you said, they've done that. The fighting is intense, unnecessarily intense at times. You can be in it for the teenagers. You can be in it for the storylines of how those adult characters evolve. It's brilliant across the board.
Yeah.
But I don't know. When it's done wrong, man, boy, does it almost.
Yeah, and I don't want anything I said to be taken out of context, so I'll put the ground rules into effect. You're not replacing Michael J. Fox, and obviously because of his health condition, he's not going to be in it unless he plays older Marty McFly.
Yes.
You get him in for a couple episodes, which I think is all you get out of him, and he kind of lays that framework in episodes 1, 2, and 3, and then you move on. The
Like
show
Val
has
Kilmer in the Top Gun remake.
Yes, exactly. So you get his kids. Like, this is about Marty's kids, who are now played by other actors. Christopher Lloyd's well into his 80s. He's not. It's a weird thing, because obviously he was in his 50s when they made Back to the Future, and they put him in makeup to look older. So you think, oh, he's an 80-year-old guy, but he's not. I mean, he was a very, vibrant 50-year-old actor who's now very much in his 80s. So he also needs to play a super teeny tiny role. I mean, he's done, sneaker commercials as Doc and a couple other things, and it's not. So if they're doing this, which they say they won't, but hopefully, I mean, maybe they do, it's got to be other characters using this awesome timeline that's been set out of Hill Valley and the rules of time travel and the DeLorean. Maybe they take a Tesla Cybertruck and they turn it into a time machine.
Interesting idea for a guy who knows a lot about Tesla, but that's for another podcast at another time.
Sure
Jay,
is.
you've almost stumbled into various bits of viral internet fame at different times, and boy, have you tried. I'm not necessarily mentioning the No Escape boy band that you had back in the day, but I love to bring that up. I want to ask you this. So I've seen you as like almost a foodie of late on Instagram.
Yeah.
What do you make of where we're at in terms of today's TikTok, Instagrammers, celebrities? And do you think AJ Buffummo, Big Justice, and the Rizzler of Costco guys fame are just wholesome father-son content or the beginning of the end for American culture?
Whew. I think American culture is pretty much dead. What you and I grew up on is over. I happen to be blessed to have a number of friends who really do this as their full-time thing. I won't name names on this show, but you know who they are. So, with that said, it's a real way to make money, and people need to be paying attention. Because even what I do, I would love for my food channel at Frequent Feasters, give it a follow if you're already not, to make me a full-time living or a part-time living or whatever. Right now, I'll be honest, it's a lot of free food. I mean, I haven't paid for a restaurant in about a year.
Or your taxes, Jay, but that's another topic for another day too.
Exactly. So it's an interesting way to make money, and people have to be paying attention because that is the wave of the future. When you look at it from a business perspective, brands want to pay, micro or medium macro or the Jake Pauls of the world, influencers, money to promote their products because you don't believe commercials anymore. I'd worked on a documentary in another lifetime about travel, and I found out that frequent flyer programs were made so that airlines could get away from newspaper ads and instead know who their customers were by having them sign up for their frequent flyer program so they could learn everything about their travel habits and market them appropriately. That's what social media is today. It's a guy like me who can tell a guy like you, hey, this restaurant's really great, and you're going to believe it coming from a guy like me because it's supposedly more genuine than if they just run an ad on traditional cable. So some of the buffoonery that you talk about, you got to see through, see the forest through the trees a little bit to see what's actually going on. And that's a real way to make money, to advertise clothes and have Amazon influencer links or sell blenders or I don't know what else.
Dude, the Costco guys were on Jimmy Fallon last night as we record this. Like this is way bigger than, hey, you see that weird family on the internet?
No, it's, and the views pay. And TikTok right now, China TikTok, they're paying the best for influencers who can, bring real views and do lives and stuff like that. So this is not a fad. And I think that if you look back at the last 15 years, all the things that people thought were fads, I would say that almost none of them were. All this stuff is kind of here to stay, and I'm not mad at it. I just wish I had a bigger piece of it.
I just wish it hit big when you were doing fish tanks for that season of viral internet fame, and you were reviewing supplies in large. It was you were into fish before Shab was, to be fair.
I was, and by the way, I if it all doesn't work out for me, I'll kind of look back and complain. I'll say, I was too far ahead of my time. I was doing cover songs on YouTube in like 2006, 2007, and the only other, like, the big person was Boyce Avenue, who's now gone on to do massive concerts and fame and millions of views. And then it kind of it sort of blew up. It's just wrong time for me for a lot of these things.
Dude, the pickleball thing is on fire now. You were the first one I knew that was playing it on like a high level regularly and sort of building a lifestyle around it. Jay, you're like the Forrest Gump of viral social media internet life. You've come so close so many times.
I know. Hopefully the bubblegum shrimp will land at some point. But yeah, no, pickleball's a big thing. I'm sure people are watching this and laughing right now. But pickleball is real. The math and the statistics behind it, it's the fastest growing sport in the United States. It's played by, however many millions of people and growing. The number of clubs that have opened up. I'm sure in Connecticut, where you're from, I know you're from a factory town, but living a little higher end now, I'm sure you probably in your own neighborhood know of 5 to 10, private pickleball places that you can go play.
Well,
And
they
they're
opened up one right down in the town center, and it was a big deal around town. So I know of one. Okay.
I'm sure there are more. I'm sure if you look a little harder, you'll find them. But Lifetime gyms have made a massive investment into pickleball in the millions of dollars. It's fun. Anybody can play. And then if you want to be competitive, it's kind of cool because even like as an adult, there are so many divisions and whatever you could find. Like, well, this is about how good I am, and then you can play competitively. So kind of allows that. Like when you graduate high school and you're like, that's the last time I'll ever compete competitively in my life.
Oh yeah.
Pickleball gives that back, in ways that like beer league hockey, which I still play too, not the same.
What an incredible life, Jay. I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, there was a moment there where Pennington James was red hot as a growing music performer, original music creator. I mean, that Song of the Summer music video that you had a few years ago, there was like a speedboat and a yacht. I mean, I don't even know how you pulled that off. I actually, there was a moment I thought it was going to hit. I really thought SOTS Song of the Summer was going to hit. Okay.
I thought that was perfect. A lot of people said to me that for that song, I should have just sold it, to a band that was in there between like 14 and 20. They were probably right because I don't know that a 40-year-old guy singing about country lakes and grilling steaks is the right deliverer of the message. So I probably should have sold that song. But the good thing is nobody knows it yet. It's not like I'm like a semi-famous guy who's put that song out. I'm still like a kind of a nobody. So that song's still sellable. I mean, summer goals are still summer goals.
Oh yeah.
I listened to that song. It's one of those artistically out of body experiences because there's like so many good metaphors and alliteration in that song. I kind of can't believe I wrote it,
Well, forget
this
out of
before
body.
ChatGPT also. This is before ChatGPT on
It was. I mean, that you would legitimately went after something full bore, and I was impressed by it, even if we made just, fun jokes of the Pennington James character in MK lore. But back to young Jay.
Yeah.
Like graduate high school, ready to go to Rutgers, Jay. We played the videos in the past of your lust for music fame back then. You were on some MTV programs. We played those clips. But you had that boy band, No Escape. And I don't necessarily want to talk about an out-of-body experience. I want to talk about an in-body, meaning maybe inside of someone else's body. Looking back, if Lou Pearlman of Backstreet and NSYNC fame had put his hands around No Escape, your three-man boy band, and maybe even inside, no Diddy, but like looking back, it would have been worth it, right? I mean, it probably
100%. I'm not even going to pretend. No, whatever Lou Pearlman had for me, whatever Lou Pearlman had for me, I would have welcomed it. I mean, fellow member of the tribe, I would have welcomed it with arms wide open.
Okay.
I'm not gonna.
That's a great Creed. That's a great Creed hit right there.
Yeah, I watched the Lou Pearlman documentary, and they touch on it for a moment, like, so was Lou Pearlman touching anybody? And everyone's like, well, I never saw anything. I never saw it. And I give people credit because if it's a big conspiracy and they're respecting him after death, like, all the power to those that are keeping things under wraps that just don't need to be brought up because the man's gone. But I will say this. I would have taken it all. I would have for at the time 18 years old. He if he would have told, like, if he would have been like, listen, there's a slot in O-Town for you, I would have been like,
Jay's like, I want it all or nothing at all. Speaking of O-Town right there. Wow.
Would have taken it all.
Oh my gosh, Jay Aron, a Renaissance man, a man of many. I mean, Jay, to give you credit, I mean, you've done a lot. So like, what's next in the life of Jay Aron? I know you're always juggling projects. I know you're always doing shit. What, like, when you look forward to your creative side of your life and career, where does Jay Aron want to be?
So the music thing will never go away, and it's the hope is when we get ready to carve out the tombstone, like something between now and then will have like really hit in that department. Until then, I am working on a big documentary now that's like almost done. It's about eating healthy. It's called The Price of Health. And taking
the opposite of Super Size Me. This is
it actually is the inverse Super Size Me. interviewing some great nutritionists like with big social media followings. And I went up to Boston, interviewed an economist at Tufts University who specializes in food, and a heart doctor, and all these different folks talking about, eating healthy. But really what we're looking at is like, what does it cost to eat healthy? And is it affordable? That is the question we're looking to answer. And I, as the main character here, will be doing a 30-day experiment where I eat healthy for 30 days and see what it costs. Just calculate what it costs so people can kind of make their own decisions and change their own lives. And even more than Back in Time, I don't think it won't gain the press acclaim, or maybe it will, that Back in Time did. I don't have that as a goal. But I would say more than Back in Time, I think it really touches everybody. Like, nobody says, no, I just want to be a fat slob. Like, nobody says that. People, I think, always want to be healthier, whatever that means. And I think as I've told people about this documentary, I immediately get the like, oh, well, you know what I saw last week? Like, that's always, so people are always watching this stuff. They're always paying attention to it. So I'm hoping that I could put together, a nice feature length, 90-ish minute piece that people can kind of look at and guide their lives a little differently. Like, I think we're going to help people on this one. And
I appreciate that. Because, very few people say the things you said about Luke Pearlman, but very few people also want to be
They're
unhealthy,
not honest.
so.
They're not honest.
Yeah, they're just not honest with themselves. Wow, Jay Aron, this was a hell of a journey. You know what I mean? This is like when the roller coaster ends and you're like, I almost threw up. I almost lost it, but, I might do it again someday. You were raised in New Jersey. That's correct?
Yes, Teaneck, New Jersey. Yeah. Shout out.
Okay. I mean, it's just a wild life, but it only continues from here, Jay Aron.
Yeah.
Anything else you need to plug here?
No, I'm glad you're doing this, by the way, because there were like, you kind of had tipped the scales on one too many reposts of a Jesus reel, and I had reached out to Manich of MK fame, and I said, does BC need a wellness check? And this is, I swear to God, I used the words wellness check. I had no idea you had already done this with Australian Luke. And he sent me the link to that. And I was like, Corey, you're not going to believe this, but like, I legitimately like had that thought with those words. I mean, it's all documented.
I just try to use my platform, Jay, to inspire others. I don't just like you have, because to be fair, and I wanted to ask you, this will be my final question. Did you take any criticism? And I don't mean to joke about the war involving the tribe and Israel, but you put out a heartfelt tune to aid the people on that side of the line that some in MK lore behind the scenes were saying, wow, the ultimate opportunist is on top of this. But did that song, you think, help people?
It certainly more overwhelmingly helped than hurt. The guy that I did that song with, Arya Kunstler, is actually a longtime producer of stuff that I've done musically on the internet. He's blown up in his world. I think he has like 60 or 70,000 followers that all came in the last year, like out of nowhere. He went from like 5,000 to like 60,000 out of nowhere, and doing these style of reels. And I was at his place one day. We're like, let's do this out of no. I mean, it was not opportunistic at all. It was very organic. Why don't we just do this? And we did it. And I think more than anything, I didn't get hate. I got a lot of surprise from people in that world who know me, who were like, didn't know you did that. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Wow. And when you look back at the documentaries, I'll never forget Australian MK fan Damien O'Hara, who did that cover song of that Enrique Iglesias hit that we played a montage to end documentary number 2. But the final line was, I've got more talent than producer Jay. Are you okay? Are you okay to close this in hindsight, Jay? That people, like, I want one day that you're walking down the street in New York City and someone stops you and say, producer Jay, Morning Kombat. That's what I hope. But are we good? MK and Jay Aron, are we good?
We are more than good. And I've sort of gotten that on like Instagram comments, by the way, not necessarily like Street of New York City, but
all right.
I posted random things on Instagram and they go, MK fan here, or like stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't a loss altogether.
Yes. No, not at all. Not at all.
It was a net gain. This man's amazing. Producer, director, documentarian, pickleball star, internet foodie, former boy bander, Jason Aron. Thank you for your time. We checked in. Turns out you're doing well.
I'm doing great.
There it is. Whoop, there it is. Jay Aron, thank you so much. Where can they follow you? Where can people find more?
It's just Instagram's the easiest one. At Jason_Aron, 1A in Aron. And yeah, that's me.
All right. There he is, Jay Aron. Thank you